Today, I want to take a closer look at three companies that are reporting earnings this week that, as a semiconductor, as an AI, and as a tech investor, is something I am very, very curious about, as these three stocks, in my opinion, can share a lot and a lot of great insight of what's happening in the market, especially with all this kind of confusion and uncertainty with tariffs and a lot of other things impacting the overall space. So the three companies we're going to look at are Tesla, Intel, and Google. As an Nvidia investor, for sure, all three companies here, in my opinion, can give me some form of insight as an Nvidia investor of what maybe I should expect in the upcoming earnings. So let's take a closer look in today's episode.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for their subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so first, I just want to look at the earnings calendar. And like I mentioned, Tesla is the one we're going to start off with. Tesla is reporting on Tuesday after the market closes. Now, the other two players that I'm really focused on are going to be Intel and Google, aka Alphabet, that are reporting Thursday after the market closes. If there was one more stock that I would be very curious about, that I didn't mention today, but it might kind of mention like a mention list, it would be Vertiv, ticker VRT. This is a company that, for those that are not familiar, focuses on kind of AI infrastructure solutions. So if there is one of the big things, right, we're seeing right now is this fear of over investment happening in data center market, this fear of some data center plants slowing down. I think Vertiv might be one of those companies that can give us a bit of an insight if that is true or not. So while I'm not going to add Vertiv on today's list. I just wanted to give that quick mention for if you are a data center investor, if you are an AI investor, Vertiv is definitely one that should be on the radar, just because it could give us an indication of maybe what's happening in the long-term data center space. Is there any changes in the overall market at the moment? But now back to the list. The first one I want to take a closer look at is Tesla, right? Tesla, unfortunately, has taken quite a hit from its 52-week high. The stock is down nearly 50%. Now, for Tesla, I don't really care too much about, as an AI and tech investor, right, I couldn't care too much about the automotive side of the business right now because the automotive market is completely weak. Obviously, there might be some discussions that because of Elon Musk and other things that Tesla might be seeing a little bit more headwinds than some of the other markets. But regardless, the automotive market is weak. What I am really, really curious about is more outside of that AI market, right? Because we know that overall consensus estimate for quarter one revenue are about $21.8 billion. Earnings per share projected to be about 43 cents, and both are a decline from previous quarter and year over year. We also already saw kind of the numbers of vehicles produced and delivered this past quarter, and both were down double digits year over year and below Wall Street expectations. So we already kind of know that the automotive market is weak. Now, what I am going to be a little bit more curious about is obviously there's a lot of discussions about the more affordable EV model. And during a market right now where kind of macroeconomics is even more uncertain than before, is this something that they should maybe accelerate? But also with any potential kind of tariff updates, does this affordable EV model becomes even more and more expensive? So maybe some updates on or on the timeline of this EV model and if any changes to tariffs. Now, I think the ones I'm more interested of is the progress on robo-taxi development. We did hear kind of that initial timeline of Austin planned for June of 2025. Is that schedule still on time? The second is obviously any updates to the humanoid Optimus project, the humanoid robot project. As an AI investor, it is very, very important to see developments in this space. And as an AI investor, I want to say Tesla is one of the few public companies that is dealing right now with humanoid robots, so it can give us an early indication of what's happening. And as a Tesla investor, I think these two things is one of the big cases that many bulls make for Tesla. I mean, even myself, is this is not a car company, right? This is more of an AI company. Can kind of those changes, can that company really showcase that, hey, look, it's more than an AI company right now by staying on schedule here with the Austin testing. This is still that's originally planned for June of 2025, and any updates to the humanoid robot. Now, the final things that I have here is obviously the impact of tariffs and how Tesla plans to address these costs, either through price increase or margin compression, which will be a key topic. So I think Tesla being very popular company, also a very heavy manufacturing company, I do believe we get to see maybe some impact of tariffs. Well, maybe the final manufacturing of a lot of Tesla vehicles do happen in the United States. I'm gonna guess that a good amount of the materials and other stuff come from other parts of the world. So while the final thing happens here, there's still, in my opinion, is very much dependent in a global trade. So I think we could see an early indication or maybe some impacts to the tariff industry, right? So I think Tesla can give us two indications. First, any real changes in the overall in the overall market in forms of tariffs, and then any real form of update in regards to AI market evolving. So Tesla, the first one on my list, especially since it is reporting on Tuesday. Now, the second one is going to be Intel Corporation. So while I'm not a shareholder of Intel, and this is a stock that kind of very similar to Tesla, if we look from its overall peak, the stock 52-week peak, the stock is down nearly 45%. Definitely a sucky day, sucky time for certain tech investors, in my opinion. But with Intel, new leadership is coming in, right? I do believe this is going to be the first Intel earnings with the new CEO, Lip-Bu Tan. Now, Lip-Bu Tan is changing things. We did hear some reports that from Reuters that Intel CEO flattens leadership structure and names a new AI chief, Memo says. So, interesting thoughts there, because we have heard that some of the best AI companies out there, one being NVIDIA, it has a very, very flattened out leadership structure. I wonder if many companies are trying to kind of follow that same structure as well, where you're reducing a lot of the middle leadership, which just creates friction and just creates even more hurdles for real engineers and real talent to thrive. So want to see more of an update of what's happening here with Intel and with the new CEO. What is he changing? In my opinion, obviously, he's just been the CEO for a few, maybe a month at most. There really wouldn't be much changes outside of just structural changes, and those structural changes, while they are great, they probably won't be much impactful anytime soon. It's something that kind of changes over time. Now, as a Intel, I'm not an Intel investor, but someone who follows Intel, I do believe this is going to be another key event outside of earnings, and this is next week on April 29th. They are going to have their Intel Foundry event, which really focuses on their manufacturing update. But a few things to watch during this earnings is, first, last quarter the company did guide for a much lower revenue based on analyst consensus estimate, and it was a range of 11.7 to 12.7 billion. The reason they mentioned they gave that guidance for quarter one is in quarter four of 2024, Intel believed that a lot of the huge growth in purchasing that they saw in their CPUs was driven because of fear of tariffs impacting. So a lot of kind of heavy orders came in the front end, and was going to slow down this quarter. Now, it's that story still in line, or have things changed? That's something I want to know. Has Intel, and Intel is going to be, in my opinion, one of the first semiconductor companies in the consumer space that has pretty much a more direct impact to direct consumers about the overall semiconductor industry and about the overall tariffs. So I would love to hear their management talk a little more about this, because what the last two earnings in the semiconductor company were ASML and TSMC. These are two companies that really don't see at the end of the day a true impact to the end consumer right away. Where Intel, they do have kind of a direct see of how the consumer market is going. So they are going to be very crucial, in my opinion, during this whole tariff talks. Now, the other things that I would love to see is, again, we're most likely going to get more discussions about them in the foundry space, but any commentary in the AI business in the foundry service and the competitive position in their server CPU against companies like AMD, right? So I would love to hear more about Lee Bhutan and from Lee Bhutan and sees how he handles his first earnings call. Again, I don't expect anything drastic here or anything major. I think if we do have any cool foundry announcements, we're most likely going to get it during this event on Direct Connect 2025, which is on April 29th. Now, the final company, and I think this is going to be the most crucial in my opinion as an AI investor and maybe as an NVIDIA investor, is Alphabet. So Alphabet is going to be the first big cloud service provider to report earnings, and they are reporting on Thursday. So crucial here. What are they doing with kind of capital expenditure in the AI server? Have there been any changes in the past compared to the previous guidance? I doubt there will be, but this is finally we're going to get it set in stone that they come in here in quarter one, say maybe they tell us, look, there might have been a bit of an overinvestment happening. We're going to slow it down a little bit for a quarter or two, but then we're going to pick back up. So I'm hoping to get a little bit more clarity. I think if there was ever a quarter for us to see something like that, it would either be it would be this quarter. So we'll love to hear more on that. The second thing is obviously their cloud growth, right? Their cloud market is an easy, also strong indication of how the AI servers are going. Last quarter, they gave us the commentary that said, if they had more cloud infrastructure, they would be able to grow their clouding market even faster. Is that the same story we're going to hear this quarter, or is the story changing? If the story is changing, maybe this is kind of talking a little bit more of getting closer to overcapacity opposed to undercapacity in this overall supply and demand market, right? So I'm not saying it will be a complete 180 and change the story, but at least see if there is a shift tone, at least in that cloud revenue market. Now, some other things that investors are going to be looking at, like I mentioned, the cloud market. This is a company that focuses in the consumer space with their advertisement solution. Have they seen any impact with tariffs right now? Has there been a bit of a slowdown in any advertisement revenue? Again, those numbers won't really affect this quarter that they will be reporting, but they can give us a light, maybe some picture of what the current quarter that's not being reported, but the one that's already running, what kind of color they're seeing. Hey, maybe they mentioned for the first few weeks of quarter two, we did notice a bit of a downtick, right? So while it is not going to be important for the quarter that they're reporting, they could give us maybe a form of insight of what's happening in the current quarter already. Now, the other thing that we see is Alphabet. I did a video about it yesterday. Alphabet faces ongoing regulatory scrutiny, particularly after the United States District Court ruling found that Google illegally maintained monopolies in online advertisement. So I talked about that a little bit in my previous episode, but too long don't watch. This is something that, in my opinion, can take multiple years before it really get an answer out of this. But I do believe it's going to be something that we're going to get a nice amount of questions. Now, again, for me, the biggest thing is capital expenditure plans for AI infrastructure. Has that changed? Or is the commentary and the discussions on this shifting a little bit? So as an investor, it's pretty cool to, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I'm also not just analyzing a company, but analyzing the tone of how management says something, right? I think one thing that I love about earnings calls is you get to hear how a company says something or how management says something. And you can see if there's a different shift on how they're saying something versus maybe a quarter ago. So maybe a little bit of reverse human engineering, in my opinion, is also crucial in this space, especially when you're trying to find out what's changing here. But the impact of AI on user engagement and advertising efficiency and the progress in AI monetization, especially in search and cloud, can also give us some great insight about the AI market. So again, cloud and CapEx are the two C's I'm looking at in forms of what to be listening to during the earnings call. So those are the three companies that I'm really going to be curious for this upcoming week. Again, I mentioned Vertiv. I'm not really looking at it too much. I might do, if anything, a quick video on Wednesday, so make sure to stay tuned to the channel. But I will be covering some of these in the free newsletter, so make sure to check that out at whatthechiphappened.com. Take care, have a good day, and see you all next time.